Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Cherries Red Army YouTube channel. I'm Kirk. It's Friday night. It's another match preview, and your football weekend starts right here. We hope everyone's had a good week after a busy Easter schedule, and we're here as AFC Bournemouth take on Coventry at the Vitality Stadium tomorrow in the Championship. I have two more exciting guests this evening, and we'll break down this fixture in more detail. We also have you, the fans, out there interactively live with us right now, and you can get involved throughout the show. Just chat, let us know your thoughts, and we'll share as many comments as we can throughout the show. Also give the video a like as well if you do enjoy, and also subscribe if you haven't already. Let's get our first guest on then. He is a Sky Sports presenter for over 15 years. He's local to AFC Bournemouth as well. Let's get in Gary Taphouse. How you doing, Gary?
Hi there, commentator Kirk, not presenter.
Sorry,
people don't see this face on their screen very often, so
there we
definitely
go.
behind the camera.
First mistake of the evening already. But yeah, tell us a bit more about yourself, Gary. Obviously, commentator, as you say, and local to Bournemouth.
Yeah, well, it all began for me here in Bournemouth because I went to Bournemouth University, and I was very lucky that in my final year I got the opportunity to commentate on some games for the club. This is late 90s, so third tier, when the club didn't have much money. Yeah, I was very, very fortunate, and that led on to other things once I left university. But I always wanted to come back to Bournemouth, and 4 or 5 years ago, I persuaded my family to up sticks and come back down to Bournemouth. So yeah, we're in Moordown, just a couple of miles from the ground. And obviously I like to encourage my producers to give me as many Bournemouth games as I can, because that means less travelling for me.
I've also had another commentator on for BBC Solent, Chris Temple, and I asked him this question. I mean, how's it been for you doing your profession through COVID in 3 lockdowns? Has it got easier?
Well, obviously for people like Chris, it was very difficult because the BBC stopped local radio commentators from travelling, which was absolutely ridiculous in my view, because they're performing a hugely important role, and instead they made them go into a studio where they were mixing with other people indoors, which completely made no sense. For me, I'm very, very lucky. I've been very, very busy apart from when football stopped. From June onwards, I've been incredibly busy. I've probably done more games than a normal season, to be honest. I've hated the fact that there's no fans in the ground like everyone else. It's sterile. It feels like football by contractual obligation. So yeah, the sooner we get back to normal, I'm praying that the start of next season, we have full stadiums again, because it's not the same. We all know it's not the same. I think it's helped to keep quite a lot of people sane, having so much football on TV. But I can count the number of really good games I've been to since June on fingers of one hand, to be honest.
Can't wait. Hopefully get my season ticket back in the North Stand, and hopefully we can get out there again next season. Right, let's get my second guest on for the opposition. Played over 500 professional football matches, scoring over 125 goals. Local to Coventry as well, I believe. 2 spells at Coventry. Let's get on Gary McSheffrey. How you doing, Gary?
Good, thank you. How you doing, Kurt?
Yeah, not too bad. And just tell us a bit about what you're doing now. Obviously, are you still playing, or are you coaching?
Yeah, I'm coaching. I've not played now for 3 seasons. Retired at 35. It wasn't really planned, but it just transitioned into a coaching role, and it's my 3rd season now at Doncaster Rovers. So I'm coaching the under-18s now. Enjoying it.
I've probably caused myself a bit of an issue here getting 2 guests on that are both called Gary. So throughout the show, we sort of agreed behind the scenes that Gary McSheffrey will be called Gaz, just so there's no confusion. So appreciate that, guys. Let's get on with the match preview then, and we'll look at the previous match between both teams earlier on in the season. I think it was a 4th game, game week 4, and it was AFC Bournemouth 3, Coventry 1, under Jason Tindall. Gary, yeah, I think unbeaten at that time as well.
Yeah, obviously the season started well, didn't it? And I think Bournemouth went into the game as favourites, and that's how it transpired. Funny old season, really, isn't it? At that stage of the season, I think we are all thinking Bournemouth, they're going to be top 2, arguably the best squad in the division, kept a lot of the Premier League squad together. I think we thought they might run away with it, and this was a classic example of what we thought we were going to expect for the rest of this season. Obviously, it hasn't transpired that way, but this was a really good performance.
Now, this was meant to be a home game, Gaz, for Coventry, but they're obviously not playing at the Ricoh Arena, but they will be, I believe, next season. Hopefully you can confirm that for me. But this was at St Andrews, Birmingham's ground, but just come up from League One. I mean, what was your expectations at the start of the season?
I think they started the season playing really well. There was quite a few high-scoring games. If you notice, most of the defeats were by the odd goal. It was a 3-2, or this was the first 2-goal defeat, I think. And I think the difference on the night, Coventry put a bit of a performance in for spells in the first half, but I think Dan Gosling just gripped the game second half by the scruff of the neck and really ran the show. Got a couple of goals, and as Gary said, they looked superb at that point, didn't they? 4 or 5 games in, you'd strongly tip them to say if they can keep this team together, not have some luck with injuries, then they'd probably comfortably get back up into the Premier League. But it's as every season does, it's not quite turned out that way, but they're still in a strong position to get a playoff place. But this was, for me, the real welcome back to the Championship for Coventry, this game, because they'd had a few games. I think they've got the odd result, maybe a draw as well. But this was the first one where it was like, this is the standard. And I think a lot of Coventry fans forgot the fact that Bournemouth had just come down from the Prem as well. So it was almost like a gulf of 2 divisions coming together, wasn't it? And but that was the one for me where I thought, yeah, it's a proper league. There's some really good teams in it, and I think Coventry's realistic ambition for the season was just to establish ourselves as a Championship club again, and build. And it's been a difficult season, but they're still there. It's still in their hands, and got a great win the other day against over Easter against Bristol City. And you look at Rotherham with the games in hand, but you'd rather have the points on the board. Rotherham are in a position now where they have to win all of them 3 games in hands to climb above the likes of Coventry and Birmingham. So it's been a bit of a learning curve season for them, but I just hope and pray that they can stay over the line and really build and establish themselves again as a good Championship club.
And we'll look at that form and the run-ins for both teams as the show goes on. And Gary, just on that, with regards to St Andrews, Bournemouth like an away fixture at St Andrews, whether it's Birmingham or Coventry, and also on a Friday night. It's weird that both of those things always go down quite well for Bournemouth.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if the players are aware of that. It's funny how those things work out, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, I think they'll definitely fancy it, particularly, as you say, with the form they've been in. But just listening to Gary there talking about Coventry, incredibly tough when you're essentially playing 46 away games in a season. You've just come up. The resources are obviously not what Bournemouth have. I think they've done incredibly well. I've had the pleasure of watching a few of their games for Sky this season, and they've never wanted for effort or endeavour. They might have lacked a bit of quality in the final third once or twice, but I've been impressed, to be honest. And I think if they stay up, I think they'll count that as a win, to be honest.
Game week 40 then, the previous matches on Bank Holiday Monday. Gary, AFC Bournemouth went to Blackburn, did a double in the Championship and won 2-0. Philip Billings seems to be a player in form at the moment. Dan Juma scored again as well, but 3 wins in a row. Bournemouth seemed to be putting something together right at the end. Well,
they needed to, didn't they? Because they'd had a dodgy spell where they dropped out of the playoffs. I think we were all thinking, is this season going to crumble away? And yeah, 3 wins in a row. And as you say, Billing has started to show the sort of form that I think we all hoped he would show when he was signed from Huddersfield. It's taken a bit of time. And I was interested to hear Jonathan Woodgate really talking up Jefferson Lerma after the game. He said every single match for me, he's been an 8 out of 10. I think there was a risk with Lerma that he was going to be remembered more for his disciplinary record than his football, like he was in Spain. But he really seems to have turned that around, and I think he's been absolutely fantastic. Let's remember, he's a £25 million player. You know, it's not like he was signed for nothing. So it shouldn't come as a huge surprise. But I think he and Billing have been absolutely fantastic. Again, it's an example of where you keep your players in the Premier League squad, and they up their game in the Championship. And, you know, how lovely to see David Brooks down the right-hand side, you know, absolutely killing it. I don't think it was an amazing performance, actually, that at the weekend. You know, I think Jonathan Woodgate said they kind of grounded out, didn't they? They only had half a dozen shots in the game, but really impressive away performance. And as you say, Danjuma, fantastic. I mean, he's really banging them in now, and looking really good at this level.
Coventry City, like you said then, Gaz, a home win versus Bristol City 3-1, probably needed it just to create a little bit of space. I think Godden got a pen in the first game between the teams as well. Yeah, impressed with that victory?
Yeah, I mean, I looked at the stats after Bristol. Bristol had quite a lot of possession, but Coventry had the majority of the chances. I think 15 chances on the day, and you know, really had the better end product in the final third, you know, for once. And Godden being back's a big plus. You know, for me, he's a natural goal scorer. He leads the line well. He's always looking to play in behind. Walker did well as well, and O'Hare's a bit of a. Sometimes O'Hare is unplayable when he plays behind the front too, and he really seemed to open Bristol up that day. So great win. As I said, it was just to get them 3 points, and for Rotherham to lose at home to Wycombe, it was just such a big relief for the club and a massive win.
And I think you've got Rotherham next Thursday as well. I mean, is there going to be one eye on that fixture, Gaz, or is it just one game at a time?
I think Mark's obviously one game at a time kind of guy. You know, I'm sure he'll be coming to Bournemouth on the confidence of winning that game, knowing that they've got the personnel to potentially have an upset. But he does respect the Bournemouth team. You know, he knows the class in that team. Reeled off quite a few players on his interview earlier on the Coventry Twitter, and but he'll definitely be looking to get one over his own club, because he knows that Bournemouth's. If he gets anything from Bournemouth tomorrow, it's a bonus. Them nitty-gritty games with teams around them now, they're the big games that will really focus. Once tomorrow's out the way, he'll spend Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday really focusing and prepping for that game. And it's, you know, just don't lose against them. Don't let them gain any points while they've got them games in hands, and that's a good result.
The head-to-head between the teams, and there's not been an awful lot of fixtures in the past. Only 5, I think, since 1988, and more recently since 2012. 3 matches between the teams, 2 wins for Coventry and 1 for Bournemouth. Gaz, I think you played in the February 2013 fixture 2-0. Is that right?
Yeah, I think I've played down there twice in my career. Once for Luton a long time ago, and then once for Coventry in that League One season. Yeah, and I think we won 2-0. I remember Leon Clark scoring, and I'm not sure who got the first. But yeah, it was a good win. But again, they were a really good football team that night. You know, they popped us off the park really for football. But we had a strong squad, just come down from the champ, and we done a job on them. But yeah, it's the only game really I can remember playing there.
Was that Rico? Was that at the Rico Arena as well? And are Coventry going back there, did you say?
Coventry are going, well, yes. The plan is, I think they're signing a 10-year contract to go back there. So that's going to be a massive plus, and hopefully the fans can be back in. I mean, last year I watched them a lot last year at St Andrews, and although they were away from the city, the pitch was immaculate. Their football in League One was top draw, and it suited them a little bit, you know. And they regularly got 7,000-8,000 there, so it was actually felt like a good atmosphere when you went there. But to lose the fans this year was a major blow, because, like I say, the fans still made it actually feel almost like a home game. And to get back to the Rico will be massive. You know, it can be a fortress, and hopefully Coventry can be a force again in the Championship, and, you know, be at the right end of the table going forward.
With those head-to-heads, Gary, Bournemouth have only been in the Championship a few seasons in their history, and because they were successful under Eddie Howe, we have got quite a good head-to-head record against most Championship teams, but not in this fixture. I mean, does it play a part in these games, or is a team that got relegated to a team that got promoted?
Yeah, I mean, I think at this stage of the season, it doesn't really mean much, because you look at who played in these fixtures, and it's different times, different players. I don't think they'll be paying much attention to that, to be honest. I think the bottom line is Bournemouth are going into the game on the back of 3 wins, 3 good wins. They've started to look tight at the back again, which was a worry, not so long ago. And they know what they've got to do. Even though they've had those 3 wins, they're still not guaranteed a top 6 place. So they've got to keep winning. We all know that. Mark Robins is. I've spoken to him a couple of times this season. I think he's been very unlucky at times with injuries, like as a lot of teams have. Whereas a squad like Bournemouth, they've got really good players to come in when someone gets injured. Mark doesn't have that. And again, I just got to underline, I think he's done a really, really good job in the circumstances. So it's not going to be easy by any means. But I think there'll be another one in the head-to-head for Bournemouth, to be honest. If it goes as it should have done, based on the form so far, then they should be winning the game. But as we know, the Championship doesn't work like that.
We're getting to the halfway stage in this show, and we're going to take a look at Coventry in more detail, the form, how they've done this season, and the players that potentially could hurt us. Make sure you give this video a like. There's lots of chat going on in this live interactive show. So yeah, keep it up. You've got 20 seconds. Give us a thumbs up. We'll be back and we'll talk a little bit more about Coventry and Bournemouth. Okay, guys, so Coventry City sitting in 20th, 42 points and 10 wins, 2 on the road. Has that been the problem this year, considering they're not in the relegation zone, but only 2 wins away from home?
Yeah, I think, as Gary said earlier, they've got some really good players. And when Mark does get a couple of injuries, he's backing it up really with young prospects and going to be good players, but are they consistently good enough yet for Championship level? That's why they're probably on the bench and squad players. So it's finding that consistency level. On their day, they're a match. On their day, they can have a right good game against anyone in the division. But when you've got a squad that have not many of them have played Championship football on a regular basis, you recruit a few foreign players that have not played in England before. Getting them to gel together and find that real consistency straight away is quite difficult. And it does show with the amount of away victories. I mean, last year that they hadn't won in a whole calendar year 2 years ago away from home, and then I think they won on New Year's Day last year and went on to win a whole load of games in League One away from home. And but they've just come up short a little bit away from home again this year. But as we've said, I think they've done all right, and to be there and thereabouts, and for it to be in their own hands at the minute, at this stage of the season, is big compliment to everyone involved, because it's like I say, it's about establishing themselves again, and if they can stay up, for me it's been a successful season.
Another interesting stat is Coventry City haven't won 2 games back to back, and they obviously won on Monday. So does that mean that they don't win tomorrow based on that stat? Again,
that's the word I use, isn't it? It's consistency. When you get to Championship football, that's the key word. You need to perform. It can't be 1 in 3, 1 in 4 games. You need to perform like 8 in 10 games to be constantly comfortable and always progressing. But like I say, there's always a first. There's always got to be a first to get the back-to-back wins, hasn't there? So if it happened tomorrow, it wouldn't surprise me with Championship football. The old saying that anyone can beat anyone on their day it's true. It's fact. We see it weekly, and it wouldn't surprise me, and I really hope it comes tomorrow.
When you're at the bottom, back-to-back wins, there's nothing bigger, is there? It changes everything. So it would be huge for them if they could get a result.
And if it would happen in the league, it would be the Championship. I'm sure of that. On the other hand, Gary, AFC Bournemouth put 3 wins together in a row in the Championship for the first time in 2021, second time this season. They've got Coventry tomorrow on paper. The bookies will probably say that they're favourites. And then Huddersfield on Tuesday. An opportunity to get some 5-6 wins in a row. So some teams have done it in this league. And if Bournemouth are going to get those playoff places, they need to put these teams to bed.
Yeah, well, particularly as they know they've got Norwich away after that, haven't they? Who've just put 7 in their last home game. So I think if they can get 6 points from these next 2 games, I think Jonathan Woodgate would be really, really happy with that. There was the huge disappointment in the Cup against Southampton, and I know that Jonathan made a big point of saying what a good side Southampton are, but for me, that was such a hugely disappointing performance in the Cup. I know the priority is the league, but Bournemouth in a FA Cup quarter-final, potentially going to Wembley, it just felt like such a non-performance to me. So thankfully, they've backed it up with wins in the league, which almost all is forgiven. If they end up in the playoffs, then I think the fans will forgive them that not turning up that day. But I think they've probably got to win these next 2 games, because otherwise the teams around them are winning, and not finishing in the top 6 for me is just it's unthinkable with the squad they've got. It shouldn't be happening.
Gaz, while I've got you on and what Gary's just said there about the FA Cup, I mean, have you been in a position as a professional football player where you've had to challenge a cup game against potentially trying to stay in a league or go for the playoffs? I mean, the monetary value between the two is massive. I mean, do those things come into play when you're a player, when potentially the board are thinking you've got to go for one or the other?
I think when I was playing like in the top 2 tiers for the majority of my career, it was always a good cup run was brilliant, and you never wanted to get injured. If you had a 5th round game coming up the following Saturday and you had a Tuesday night game, you were always looking forward to them games. In terms of league, I've never been involved in a playoff in my career. An old wise head, Richard Shaw, who was a real role model for me growing up at Coventry, he said to me, "Macca, 1st, 2nd or 7th, son. 1st, 2nd or 7th." He said, "You finish, because obviously Championship, 1st, 2nd or 7th." He said, "Automatic, or you get your summer holidays. Don't get involved in playoffs, because if you lose, it's the worst thing ever." So I never got involved. But Bournemouth now, they'd happily swap that bad performance, as Gary said, for 2 wins now and try and secure that playoff spot. Absolutely. I mean, the money involved now in football to get back to the Premier League is unreal, isn't it? And although fans and players would love a cup run and an appearance at Wembley and get as far as they can to make history in an FA Cup, the powers of B that put all their finances into the club, they will want Premiership football more than anything. And that's how the game's gone, and it's a business, isn't it, for them people?
I think there's also the worry, Gary, that if they don't, then what's going to happen to this squad, which has got a lot of Premier League players in? They're not all going to stay. You know how it works. They've kept it together for this one season. If they don't go up, then how are they going to hold on to players like David Brooks, who's much coveted? So that's the big worry, I think, for the fans. Yes, they want to be in the Premier League for the financial reasons, but it's also, this is such a good squad. And there's obviously that fear that they lost 3 players last summer, but they kept most of it together. But suddenly it could be decimated. And then you're talking about a rebuilding job whilst also going for promotion, which is a massive challenge.
You've hit the nail on the head there, because that did happen to me on a lesser scale. When we got relegated out of the Championship with Coventry, the manager was quite clearly given 1 season to keep the players, to keep that kind of budget. Once we didn't get back up that season, wow, there was probably 8 of us transfer listed with still under contract. And as you say, the rebuild then, that was the start of the terrible times, and Coventry have had to go strip it right back to the lowest the club have ever been in the professional game, to start coming again, to start rising again. And as Gary said, Bournemouth will not want that to happen, because the salaries some of these players will be on, the financial the financial problems they'll have, players will be getting, they'll be getting sold. Clubs will be pickpocketing them, won't they? And probably getting them not at their full market value, because they know that they need to trim the wage bill and get the finances back.
We know the club's made a big loss this year. That we found out a couple of weeks ago, didn't we? I'm sure you've talked about it on here. They've got a very good owner in Maxim Demin, but he wanted some money back after relegation, which is why players left. And I think he's expecting promotion, isn't he? So the pressure's really on in these next few games.
It's the fear of the unknown that scares a lot of AFC Bournemouth fans. So let's just take a look at Coventry City's last game, the team that started, Gary, and just let us know. Is this sort of close to, if you can see that, is this sort of close to what the team might look like tomorrow? And I mean, how much different is that team from the team that came up and got promoted?
Yeah, similar. I think it's that 3-4-1-2 formation where O'Hare plays in behind the front two. The team that got promoted, they played the 3 a lot and the 4, but they'd often box off the midfield and then play a 2 and a 1 with just one striker. And it was a lot of the time O'Hare, Allen, they mixed it about really well, and them midfield players can run in beyond as well. So they always won the midfield battle in League One, and it wouldn't surprise me. I think he'll keep a winning team, but if there was going to be one tweak, it wouldn't surprise me if he went back to that box in midfield and tried to, have a 4-for-3 overload in their midfield areas to try and nullify some of their Bournemouth's top players.
Gary, just looking at that team, I know you mentioned O'Hare. I think he's been brilliant as well. But the one player I've really loved watching is McCallum down the left-hand side. And I know that he was sold to Norwich and loaned back, wasn't he? I think it was a really good deal for everyone. But the quality of ball that he puts in, you'd love to be on the end of those, wouldn't you?
Yeah, his left foot's lovely. Bounced on the scene from a private academy. It was a good bit of recruitment from the club, and as you say, to get a good fee for him and then to get him back for a year was great business. And they've done that quite a few times. They did it with Maddison a couple of years back, and they've always recruited well. They've always developed well their own players. So disappointingly, it is a club that still really is a feeder club to top clubs. But we're back in the Championship now, and with the likes of him in the team, the delivery, the boy Eccles come in as well. He's a local kid. He was 21 the other day, and he's had a loan at Gillingham, I think, start of the season to get League One games under his belt. And he's playing down the right hand side at the minute. Really, he's a central midfielder, but he's doing a job on that right, and he'll run all day. He'll tackle. He's a Cov kid, and he could be one to look out for as well in the future. But it's a team with comfortable players. I mean, Hamer started the season really well, didn't he? Scored some great goals. He's on the bench at the minute. He got a red card actually in the first game. But the fans really took to him and loved him. I think sometimes his out of possession stuff is lacks a little bit of discipline.
He likes to strike from outside the box, doesn't he?
Yeah. His shooting and passing is unreal. I think in possession, it's unquestionably possibly the best player in the squad. He's in possession stuff's really good. His passing, his shooting, top draw. But I think he's gone with James and Kelly in central midfield in recent weeks. Two tried and trusted players at the level. You can really rely on them, and they're Kelly leads by example. James is he's been at a top club in Leicester for years, hasn't he? So with them two locking in, it just wouldn't surprise me if he brought one midfielder in and maybe went with a one up top just to try and get some sort of result tomorrow.
Gaz, I really appreciate you coming on for Coventry. Have you got a score prediction for tomorrow?
I'm going to put my neck on the line. I'm going to 2-2. We're going to get a draw tomorrow.
And I'll get yours in a minute, Gary, when we have a look at the Bournemouth team. Gaz, really appreciate it. Good luck with all the stuff you're doing at Doncaster as well. And wish you all the best for the future. Cheers for this.
Cheers, Kurt. Thanks, Gary.
Good to speak to you, Gary.
Speak soon. Bye.
So we'll close out the show then, Gary, looking at AFC Bournemouth. The press conference today, Jonathan Woodgate said that he pretty much has a full squad nearly to pick from. We know Lewis Cook is out for the rest of the season. Junior Stanislas has been unwell for about just under a week, and Brooks is coming back to form. So he said the team's in confidence and there's no time for complacency.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the team now from from that win. I can't see many changes. Can you? I mean, it almost picked itself based on the last few games. The players that we've talked about, you can't drop them, can you? I think it's a shame about the one you were just talking about there. You'd like to have him available.
Lewis Cook.
Yeah. That's a pity. But yeah, I mean, would you expect the same team? I'm looking at that 4-2-3-1 formation, and to me, it just picks itself.
Well, I tell you what, in this part of the show, we try and predict what Woodgate might do. So for the fans, you let us know what you think as well in the chat. Gary, it's time to do this. Okay, so the AFC Bournemouth predicted 11, who we think Woodgate will pick tomorrow. And what I've done is I've almost set it up already with a few players to talk about. So Asmir Begovic in goal, solid, 15, 16 clean sheets this season. Yeah. Adam Smith preferred at right back of late. Carter Vickers and Steve Cook are building a partnership that's going to be critical to the rest of our season. Then there's a position in Kelly and Rico. Lloyd Kelly seems to own that position of late, but Rico does sort of come in. I mean, do you expect Kelly to hold the place that he did on Monday?
Yeah, I would expect him to. I mean, I like Rico. He's a bit more of a maverick, isn't he? I think Kelly's seen as someone who's a bit more reliable and solid. I really like Rico. Whether or not he's trusted in the same way, I'm not sure. So yeah, I wouldn't expect any changes to the back four, to be honest.
Jeff Lerma, I'm sure, will start. Then you've got a real good talking point in Jack Wilshere and Ben Pearson. And Ben Pearson got a man of match performance on Monday, but Jack Wilshere has also been in form in this run that we've had. I feel he might start Jack Wilshere at home against Coventry and potentially play Ben Pearson away from home at Huddersfield. I mean, what's your thinking behind that?
Yeah, that's a good shout, actually. Because you've got the stability of Lerma in there, he might throw Wilshere in. That isn't a bad idea. You could even drop Billing in there and play Wilshere a little bit further forward. That's another option. I think as long as you've got Lerma in there with the form he's in, from what he said after the last game, there's no way he's not having Lerma in the side. So yeah, maybe Wilshere at home is a decent shout.
And there seems to be some fans in the chat that are agreeing with that as well.
Yeah.
Philip Billing, I think, will hold his place with the form he's in. Dan Juma got voted as a contender for Player of the Month, but didn't win. Dom Solanke up top, I think, will hold that number 9 position. And then you've got David Brooks and Junior Stanislas. There'll be a sort of an assessment on Junior Stanislas tomorrow, but I do expect David Brooks to play in. And Bournemouth fans, just like post sort of lockdown last season, they're hoping he's just going to be the difference for us.
Yeah, I mean, Stanislas has done well, hasn't he? You've only got to look at his numbers. The problem with him has always been having a long run in the side without injury, and that's going right back to his West Ham days. And obviously Brooks has had his injury problems as well, which is very, very unfortunate. Brooks is just someone that I, as a neutral, love watching. I think the club were actually surprised at how quickly he became a regular member of the side. I spoke to some of the coaching staff at the start of last season, and they signed him for, what was it, 11.5 million from memory, with a view to playing in the under-23s at the start of the season. There was never any thought that he was going to be a first-team regular. And then, of course, in pre-season, he was just so electrifying. And he was just so brilliant while he was fit last season that his value has soared, and he essentially, if he's fit, he plays. So yeah, I just love watching him. I think he's absolutely top class, and clearly a Premier League player playing in the Championship, like several of these guys are. So I hope he plays for sure.
You happy to agree on that predicted 11 with me, Gary?
I think that's spot on. Yeah.
That's our predicted 11 for tomorrow. We'll know at 2 o'clock whether that is the correct team and the team Jonathan Woodgate will pick. If you're not watching this live and you're catching up on YouTube, why don't you let us know your thoughts in the comments and let us know who you would change if you disagree. We'll just have a look at the other fixtures tomorrow going on as well. Gary, there are more championship fixtures going on. It looks like it's a bit of a 7-horse race now for the playoff with Cardiff potentially dropping out of it. And we know there's a certain game going on right at this moment with Watford, I believe, winning against Reading. Millwall take on Swansea and Barnsley at home to Middlesbrough. Are those games, is someone, you expecting people to keep an eye on that one as well?
Oh gosh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's all gone off a cliff for Swansea, hasn't it? Which is a big surprise, really, because I saw them a few times earlier in the season under Steve Cooper, and they looked to me like they were heading straight back to the Premier League, and it's all just the wheels have just completely come off. What happened at Sheffield Wednesday? Good grief. So yeah, they'll be keeping an eye, but to me it looks like they're not out of it, obviously, but it's as you can see. But there are teams just behind them who are smelling blood, and obviously Bournemouth are one of them.
With games in hand as well.
Yeah.
It's in destiny. It's in Bournemouth's hands, their destiny, and if they keep winning football matches, they'll be in those playoffs.
Yeah. Oh, I've got no doubt they'll be there, because I just think they've turned it around now. You look at those 3 wins in a row on the right-hand side there. I wasn't sure that they were going to be able to do that at one stage. When they slipped out of the playoffs, you just wondered if there might be a sort of collective slumping of shoulders. But they've, really fair play to Jonathan Woodgate and the players. They've turned it around. They deserve to win all 3 games. And like we've said, the next 2 coming up, there's no reason why they can't win those as well. And that would really cement a top 6 place.
Absolutely agree with you. And I think if we keep playing this way, even though we've got Norwich in a week's time, we should be okay and we should get in those playoffs, hopefully. This is your opportunity then. Thanks for joining us this evening for this match preview. Let's have your score predictions in the chat and let us know what you think the score will be tomorrow. Whilst you're putting those score predictions in the chat, I've got a few questions for you, which some of the fans have posted over the last day or so, Gary, if that's okay.
Oh, yeah.
It's not often you get a commentator on. So I've got a few questions for you if you're able to answer these. I've got one from Jerron on Instagram. He said, how much research do you do before a game?
Yeah, well, usually a full day. We're very lucky at Sky. They've got a team of statisticians who put together a match pack for us. So we have a lot of stats on the teams and individual players. So we're extremely fortunate. I still do a lot of my own research as well. In fact, I was saying off air beforehand, I always will listen to or watch a fan podcast like this just to get a view of what the supporters are feeling, because obviously you get the official angle from the club and the manager, but I like to know how the fans are feeling as well. So yeah, generally I'll do 6 to 8 hours probably before each game. More if I can. It's not always possible. If I'm doing 3 games in 4 days like I did over Easter, then you're really up against it there, and I'm burning the candle at both ends. But yeah, but you can't do too much, really, is the honest answer.
Do you have a favourite stadium and a worst stadium from a commentary point of view? I assume if there's a pillar in your way or something like that, that's been Sammy Nell on Twitter.
The worst one is probably West Ham, the London Stadium. I just think it's a disaster, isn't it? I used to love going to Upton Park, both as a commentator and a fan. I hate the London Stadium. Our commentary position is so far back. I end up commentating off the monitor in front of us. It's that if there's a corner or a goalmouth scramble, you've got no chance. I think also for away fans, it's a horrendous experience. Just my personal opinion. As I say, I speak as someone who loved working at Upton Park and going to Upton Park as a fan. I just think, what have they done? As a favourite stadium, I love going to Bournemouth. Absolutely love it, because I suppose for nostalgic reasons as much as anything else, it's 2 miles from my house. The commentary position is brilliant. It's quite close to the pitch, but there's a little bit of elevation. I love Fulham as well. That was the first ever TV game I did at Craven Cottage, and the commentary position is right over the byline, so you have a fantastic view, and you're not too far back. So yeah, for practical reasons, I'd pick those two.
Yeah, I've been to the London Stadium twice, and I had the same feeling. I wish they'd told me to bring binoculars,
Yeah,
but they
exactly.
didn't. And I like Fulham as well. That's a nice day out. We Bournemouth fans like a day out at Fulham. So yeah, we'll take that. Ever had a Chris Kamara moment on air? Steve Hensman on Twitter.
Well, obviously, if you do that as a commentator, it's 10 times worse because you can't really make a joke of it. And again, I was just telling you before we went on air, I did Peterborough Sunderland in League One. Big game at the top of League One on Easter Monday. I was with Danny Cabadon, and I just had a complete brain freeze in the first half, and we did a close-up of Darren Ferguson, and I called him Duncan Ferguson. And I realised straight away, so I corrected myself, but obviously I had loads of Sunderland and Peterborough fans on Twitter giving me loads of grief. And in the second half, I just thought I've got to take the mick out of myself here. So when Peterborough scored, I actually asked for a close-up of him and said, hopefully after they've gone 1-0 up, he'll forgive me, calling him Duncan Ferguson. So yeah, it does happen. Mistakes happen. Listen, I do 100 games a season, sometimes more. All of it, unscripted, live TV. Mistakes are going to happen. We all make them. The trick is to try not too hard to beat yourself up over it, because we live in a social media age where people love to point out your mistakes, and believe me, they do point them out whenever I make one. So I just try not to take it too hard.
I'm sure I'll get a bit of Twitter grief in about 15 minutes for calling you a presenter as well. So I know how it feels. Right, let's get some score prediction on there. Cheers for doing that, Gary. So we've got a 3-0 from Simon and a few goals for Dom. Cameron, thanks for joining us. 3-1. Chris, 3-0. Heather, 3-0. Aaron, 3-0. Lots of goals out there, Gary.
Yeah, listen, Bournemouth will take any win. Like I said, the win the other day at Blackburn, 6 shots, 2 on target, they won 2-0. You know, fantastic. If it's 1-0 or 2-0 or 7-0, it's still 3 points, and that's all that matters at this stage. My personal view is 2-0. I know Coventry had that victory the other day, but I've seen plenty of games this season where they've struggled for goals. I think Bournemouth will keep them at bay. I'm going for 2-0 myself.
I did look at the stats earlier on as well, and I don't see a lot of goals in Coventry and 2 away wins. I think they haven't won since January, and I'm going for 3-0. I'm going to join the 3-0 party, and and maybe a goal for Dom, and hopefully Brooks can get a goal as well. Gary, it's been brilliant to have you on. I mean, any closing thoughts on tomorrow's game and up to anything at the weekend?
Yeah, well, I've got this weekend off, which is fantastic, because I've been very, very busy recently. Yeah, I'll be keeping an eye on the game. I just really hope, you know, as a Bournemouth resident, I think we want them back in the Premier League. I love going to the ground. I was very fortunate last season. I did over half the home games for either Sky or Premier League productions. It was like a second home to me. And like I said earlier, you know, I'm just really conscious that this squad could be broken up if they don't end up getting promoted. So let's hope that they get the win they need, and let's hope they can follow that up with another win before that Norwich game as well. I'm absolutely convinced they'll be in the playoffs, and then, as we know, you need that little bit of good fortune once you're in there. It's pure agony. Why do we put ourselves through it?
Then the lottery begins, and maybe, hopefully, we might be able to get to Wembley if we get there. I'm not sure, but we'll see.
I hope so.
Thank you to everyone who's joined us for this match preview. Make sure you give this video a like and also subscribe if you haven't already. Watford, I believe, are beating Reading. That's good news. So enjoy the rest of your evening. Tomorrow, we've got lineups live 45 minutes before kickoff as the lineups are released and we see who Woodgate picks. And we've also got a match review after the game. But enjoy the rest of your evening from me and Gary and Gaz. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you soon on the next video. Up the Cherries.